Hey, it's Marley and welcome to my March reading wrap up. Let's get into the book reviews of the books I read in March. But first, let's go through a few stats so we can have a little overview of the books I read. So first up, I read 9 books, which accounted to around 3,180 pages. I acquired 1 book and I had 1 Own Voices book. As for genres, you can see I mostly read fantasy this month. I read 5 fantasy books, 1 contemporary, 2 mystery, 1 romance. As for format, I read mostly physical, so 7 books I read were physical and 2 were ebooks. For audience, I mostly read YA with 6 YA and then 3 adult books. In terms of author gender, I read from only female authors this month. In terms of author status to me, I read from 8 repeat authors and only 1 new to me author. And then in terms of years published, we didn't have too much variety. I read 3 from 2023 and 3 from 2022, still catching up on newer releases, and then had 2 from 2018 and 1 from 2017. Now let's get into the specific reviews based on how much I liked them. I'm going to talk about my least favorite first, leading up to my favorite. So first of all, we had Two Lost Boys. This is by L.F. Robertson, and this technically is a mystery book. That's how I had to categorize it, but mostly I would just call it like a legal drama. The reason that this was on my TBR was years ago, before I even got back into reading or doing booktube. Me and my boyfriend were at an Indigo and we decided to just do one of those deals that was like buy 5 for 10 or whatever it was. And obviously the books in that category are mainly like not very popular books and not very good books. So this has just been sitting on my TBR since then. I was never really excited to read it until the TBR card that I pulled for March just made sense for me to pick this book. So I am glad to get it off my TBR, but it was definitely my least favorite book that I read this month and probably one of my least favorites of the year. I gave this one a 2-star. So essentially we are just following this woman who is a lawyer. Specifically, she is a death row appeal attorney, so she helps out clients who are on death row to like appeal that sentence, because obviously that's pretty harsh, and I don't think she really believes in death row sentencing anyways. So in particular, she's working on this one case for this man who was convicted of assault and murdering these girls. His brother also was caught for the same crimes, but his brother didn't get the death row while he did. So she's kind of investigating and trying to figure out what she can do to get this guy off of death row, since his brother basically did the same crimes but did not get such a harsh sentencing. There isn't really a huge like mystery to it, to be honest. You kind of can understand what's going on the whole time, in that basically his brother is the one that kind of manipulated the situation. The one that she's defending is a little bit more of the innocent brother. Obviously they're still both terrible and both did these crimes, but it's pretty like obvious from the jump what's going on. Basically, I would only recommend this book to someone who's really interested in being a death row appeal attorney, because you're literally just seeing this woman's life day in and day out, what her experience is like doing this job. And when I say we're seeing her life day in and day out, I mean we're seeing her grocery list. We're seeing what she's eating for dinner every night. It's very much just going through day to day, and it's very boring. There's no thrills, there's no mystery. We're just seeing what it's like to work a case like this. And for me, that's not really that interesting. But also made me have to drop the stars or drop the rating is that it feels very like outdated. Even though this book only came out in 2017, I don't know the author's age, if she's a bit older and that's why it feels outdated, but there were just certain like weight comments that only like middle-aged women really make. Like it felt like I was reading Bridget Jones' Diaries with the little comment she would make about her weight, like how she can't eat these french fries unless she wants to be exercising later, little things like that. And then some other kind of fat phobic comments. There was also a lot of use of like the R word, and I just feel like that is not that wouldn't even have been used in 2017, and there was no indication that this was supposed to take place in the past, so just a lot of it didn't sit right with me. Luckily, I was able to get through it pretty quickly, so I wasn't reading it too long, but definitely not great. I see why this was, discounted at the store. Next up, another book I was disappointed with was Stuck With You by Ali Hazelwood. This is the second book or novella in her little novella series that she has. I enjoyed the first book in in this trilogy, but this book was definitely a disappointment. We have these two characters who get stuck in an elevator together, which sounded like a really fun premise for me going into it, but unfortunately she did it in a poor way, which is too bad because I normally really enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing. But she had these people, basically they had met before and they had this kind of whirlwind romance, and then this miscommunication happened between them and they were no longer speaking for a few weeks, and then they get stuck in this elevator. So the way we're seeing it is we're seeing present day in the elevator, and then we're getting flashbacks to when they first met and had that nice kind of day together. But it was kind of a boring way to tell it. I think it didn't allow for the tension to really build between the characters. I think also like the issue between them was like kind of boring. Basically it was just a boring, nothing kind of romance. So I gave this 2.5 stars. Now all the rest of these books are a 4-star or higher, so that's good. Oh, I didn't say my average rating earlier. It was a 3.6. Okay. Next up we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This was the book I read in my reading vlog this month, where I was seeing how much hours I spent a week reading and how many hours I spent a week managing my diabetes. Check that out if you haven't yet. But this is like a contemporary book that takes place over many years, following a friendship between these two people. I think their names were Sadie and Sam. Yes. Obviously, this was a super hyped up book a few years ago. I heard mostly really good things about it. So ultimately, I was a little bit disappointed, but I did end up giving it a pretty good rating at the end of the day of 4 stars. It just wasn't exactly as good as I hoped it to be. It wasn't exactly the best taste match for me, but I still overall would recommend this one. But just be prepared for kind of like a darker, sadder story. As I said, it follows these two characters. They meet as children and become best friends, really bonding over playing video games together. They do have a falling out for like a few years, and then they reconnect in college, where they start making video games together for real once they're adults. And then we see as they make games together and build their company, they have a lot of angst and drama between them over the years. It definitely has a lot of like darker things going on, a somber kind of tone. There is things like kind of domestic abuse, disabilities are focused on, mental health issues, grief, a lot of darker stuff that I was comparing a lot to A Little Life in my vlog. It's obviously not as traumatizing as that book, not as dark, but I do think if you're someone who liked the tone of A Little Life, then you would like this, as they both deal with, you know, similar disabilities and mental health issues and stuff like that, and they also follow this friendship over many years. So if you're into that kind of story, you'd probably like this. It felt quite kind of slow and hard for me to read sometimes, which was my kind of issue with it. But at the end of the day, I think it was a cool story. It did make me feel things. I did like the ending. I think I also would have connected with it more if I was a video game person. You don't have to be a video game person to like it, but I do think it would really help you if you are into gaming and can kind of understand some of those references that were happening throughout the book. So I liked it, but I did not love it. Then let's talk about Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor. This is a standalone young adult fantasy book that I was really excited about because I was excited for it to give Caraval vibes. I love the Caraval series, and I was told this is similar, and it definitely has a lot of similar elements, but I will say it is not as good in my opinion, but it was still an interesting time, a pretty fun time, so I did rate it 4 stars. This follows 2 sisters. Our main girl is Janie, and yeah, she basically takes care of her younger sister. They live kind of in poverty, this kind of thing. And then the Hotel Magnifique appears in their town. This is a traveling hotel. It travels to different cities, and it's known to be like a place of magic. It's the only place where like you can use magic in a safe environment kind of thing. So these girls want to work there for the experience and for the money and everything, but they end up trying to work there. Unfortunately, they only want Janie's younger sister. They don't want her, so she kind of has to sneak in, and so that's why she's in a little bit of a precarious situation where she's kind of sneaking around in this hotel. She's not really supposed to be there because they didn't accept her as an employee, but then this guy Bell, who does work there, is kind of like helping her out, and he is obviously the love interest. And I did really like the dynamic between the two of them. They have that kind of bantery thing going on, and which was cute to see. It does actually get quite dark though. There's some some moments where I'm like, I was kind of surprised of what happened, considering this is like a young adult book. There is, yeah, some darkness, some twists, and I just feel like I didn't overly love the plot as much as I wanted to. I feel like I wanted it to be a little bit more fun and whimsical, and it just had a lot of like sad, dark stuff going on. But as I said, it still overall was a fun time. Again, I like that it was kind of a standalone story. We got the whole story in one. It was a nice like sisterly tale. It was adventurous, but not my favorite book of all time. All right, another 4-star and another young adult fantasy. We have The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is obviously the sequel book to the Folk of the Air series, The Cruel Prince, and that whole series. So this is following Surin. Okay, one of my issues with this book is I kind of had trouble like understanding certain things with the plot and certain things with like Surin's background, but basically she was a changeling, so she grew up in the human world even though she was fae, and then when she reached a certain age they dragged her back to the fairy world. But then it was like a really awful experience. She was like tortured and all this kind of stuff by her kingdom, and so she eventually like ran away, and she's just been like on the run for all these years. And now Oak comes along. So Prince Oak, so he was Jude's younger brother in the first book. He comes along and is like, we need your help with something. I won't get into it, but like they need her help to fix something that's going on in the fairy world because of a certain power that she has. So it's kind of like a quest book with her and Oak and then some other characters that they have going along on the journey. And I really like that kind of setup because I love a quest book. I love a little group of people going on this adventure together. And I did like the romance between Surin and Oak. Because Oak is the sibling of Jude, I thought he would have a point of view, but he doesn't. We're only following Surin's point of view. But I actually did like that because it let Oak still kind of be this mysterious figure, this mysterious love interest, which is what I prefer. I like for the love interest to be kind of like a mystery, and that's why I don't like the dual point of views in romance books. But anyways, I did feel like they had a cute romance. Oak was definitely an ideal love interest, again with just kind of having that charm and them having that banter and not really getting along all of the time. It did remind me of Jude and Carden in that way, where it's definitely going to be a bit of a slow burn and a dragging out to their relationship. So I did overall like it. I don't think it's quite as good as the Folk of the Air, but I think if you like that series, you'll find a lot of the same vibes going on in this book. So I'm so looking forward to reading the sequel. I think by the end of this one, I was like, ooh, I really want to get my hands on it. So I am excited to go buy that soon, but I did like this. All right, then I read a couple manga volumes this month. So I read volume 2 and 3 of Fullmetal Alchemist, which is a very popular series. And it's funny because I am enjoying this series so much. I know I'm so late to the party, but I think I give them both 4 stars again. This is about these two brothers who are alchemists. They're just kind of going on these different adventures, trying to defeat villains, but also trying to get their bodies back. Because as you can see, one of the brothers is fully metal. So we want to get his body back, and then the other brother has like a half metal body, so they're also trying to get his body back. So that's like their ultimate goal, but along the way they're doing like some other quests and stuff like that and meeting different people. It has this cool alchemy, you know, fantasy sci-fi stuff going on, but then it also is like so funny, and I think that's the best part of it, is how like funny these books are. I will constantly, you know, be messaging my friend about it or my boyfriend of these funny moments, and then I find out that they're actually like really iconic moments known in like the fandom, because I just like have not been a part of the fandom, so I don't know these iconic like scenes and stuff. But it's been really fun experiencing this. I think if you haven't read the story, you should check it out or watch the anime. My boyfriend watch that instead. Either way, it's a great series and I'm enjoying making my way through. All right, the next 4-star we have here is Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken. This is my most recent read. I really enjoyed it. This is another one where I'm dying for the sequel, and I'm glad that it's only coming out in a couple months. But this is a young adult fantasy book again. It deals with Arthurian legends, but I will admit, like, it kind of goes off from that a little bit, and I don't know if it's just that I don't know as much about Arthurian legends, or if Alexandra was kind of going off and making her own thing too. It doesn't totally stick with it, I guess is what I'm saying. So this was one I did struggle a little bit to wrap my head around it too. The way it was told was almost like there was a book before this that I missed out on. But by the end, like, it was fine. I was able to wrap my head around everything just as I experienced things with the characters. But we have two siblings in this that we're following. So we have Tamsin and we have her brother Cable. So they grew up like orphans, being taken care of by their guardian, but then their guardian disappeared years ago and they've been on their own since then. Their guardian was searching for this certain like relic, and that's all they kind of know. They don't know if he's dead, if he's ever coming back, or if he just abandoned them. And so they've been growing up in a part of this guild of like followers. And this is the part that I kind of like struggle to understand, but basically they will go on like certain quests and do things for people, like getting certain relics or different things like that, and that's how they kind of earn money. Her brother is actually cursed, so they do have another motive to like find this relic that breaks curses. So we also have that going on. There's also like sorceresses, like people who have magic and stuff like that. Our main character decides to go on this quest to find this relic that will break her brother's curse. She ends up teaming up with a few different people, so again it has that fun quest trope with a group of people, and within those people there's two that have a cute romance going on. So I really shipped Tamsin with this character Emrys. He's kind of like the bad boy rich kid giving Draco Malfoy vibes, and I really like their dynamic. They totally had that hate to love thing going on, and that was one of my favorite parts of this book. But I also just love the whole group dynamic, seeing them, spoiler alert, go into Avalon, go into this other world and meet even more characters and try and figure out what is going on in Avalon, because this is supposed to be this great place and it's like has some sort of curse on it. So we have another curse we're trying to break. There's magic, there's knights, there's monsters, a lot of fun stuff that you want in fantasy. I really enjoyed it despite it not being the perfect read. I still really loved it, and I'm excited to read the second book. I think it's only a duology, but yeah, if you've enjoyed her other books, I think you'll like this. I feel like she's a little bit of an underrated author now. Her books don't get as much hype as they used to, but if you're into like knights and sword fighting and magic, it's great. And lastly, we have my favorite book of the month, and it was actually the first one I read, and it was The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is not a new author on this channel. This is not a new series. This was like a little sequel book to the Inheritance Games, which obviously was the young adult mystery thriller series that I loved, that had to do with Avery, this young girl getting wrapped up in things going on with the Hawthorne family and the Hawthorne brothers. In this one, we're actually following the point of view of two of the Hawthorne brothers. They were the two that were in the love triangle with Avery, so that's Jameson and Grayson. I won't spoil who she ends up with, but both of these brothers are going on their own journeys. You know, they're newly adult, they're around 20 years old. In the previous series, they found out who their dads were, so now we're kind of delving into that, and they're getting wrapped up in their own trials and own like quests that they have. I keep saying quests in this video, but they keep having their own challenges they have to deal with. We do see Avery with the brother that she's in a relationship with, so if you liked the romance in the previous series, she is still in this with the brothers as well, so you don't have to miss out on that. I really enjoyed that part, and I love both of these brothers too, Jameson and Grayson, so I really liked seeing more from them. I actually enjoyed this more than I thought it was going to. I don't know if I said I give it 4.5 stars. So yeah, both of them have like touching stuff going on with their families. They also have mystery, and we still have twists and riddles that are being solved. It's really just a great continuation of the series, so if you enjoyed the original series, I would recommend. And it kind of introduces the next series is going to be from Jennifer Lynn Barnes in this world, and I'm actually excited about it. It's setting up for like, I think the next book's called The Grandest Games. That's the first book in a new series. It's like a competition. I think it's gonna be really fun. So yeah, I'm just enjoying these books. At first I felt like, you know, is she dragging this on unnecessarily? But you know what? I think I love these characters enough. It's fun enough that I will keep reading these books and having a good time. Okay, so those are all the books I read this month. Definitely be sure to leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books, or let me know something great that you read in March. I really appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to subscribe if you've not already. I am approaching that 1,000 subscriber mark, so I would love to hit that. Hope you have a great month, and I'll see you next time. Bye.